just wondering, Linda, do you know how many people are taking this and actually going to get either certification or whatever that they finish this program?
You know, I don't know. We've had on average 21, 22 joining us on Zoom, and about 4 to 7 joining us on YouTube. So I don't have an idea, a feel for that, actually.
Yeah, because I was just thinking about the last class, I wanted to go through potential questions that can be asked and just to see if everybody got the key points down, you
know. Okay, so we are streaming on YouTube now, just so you know. And it's another minute or so before 7, so we do have a couple minutes. And I really don't have any announcements or anything other than I can't believe this is class 5 already, class 5 of 7. It has flown by.
Yes, Giovanna. Hello, Giovanna.
Hi, how are you?
I am fine, thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Everyone be sure to see what Julie put in the chat. That's a good idea. Ask for a buddy.
A buddy.
Okay, well, Hemant, I'm showing that it's 7 o'clock, maybe even 7:01. Okay. We may still have, yeah, no worries. Someone's grabbing a new power cord or a power cord. So we may have others joining us, but if you want to go ahead and get started now, Hemant, feel free.
That's fine. Well, first of all, thank you for joining today. This is session 5, and the module is presenting the path. And wanted to wish everybody, I hope everybody had a great Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all of the ladies. And I guess in Buddhism, we would say Happy Mother's Day to everyone. Because if we had previous lives, then we were mothers of somebody. Right?
Absolutely.
So happy Mother's Day to all. And again, the goal today, and we'll go through this. I'll go through where we are, and some of these things today, the class 2 and 3, I'll go very quickly because we've been repeating them every class, right? I will slow down a little bit on class 4 because we covered karma. And then today, my intention is to finish, if possible, the scope 2. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And then the remaining 2 class, I want to get into bodhicitta, the 6 perfections, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And then the last class, hopefully, if we are able to finish all the topics, we'll get done early, but we'll go through some Q&A. I have some questions and answers here. I feel that they're important for people to know, and just summarize the whole piece so you can see a large view of the entire path. Obviously, I also want to make sure I say that just because you see 3 or 4 subject lines in my little squares, there's a lot more details underneath it. As you already know, in 84,000 teachings can be done in just 9 topics. But within topics are subtopics and subtopics. It's like if you say there's a suffering, then they'll go into the type of sufferings, and within that there are things. So what this idea behind this module is to show you the path, how it is organized, and to emphasize the fact that, as I've said it before, the workshop is in our mind. right? So we need to work with our minds. So with that said, I'll start the class, but let's do our 3 prostrations, either mentally, or if you are on the floor, or if you're sitting down, if you want to do the real ones, that's perfectly fine. But just then we'll go into calm abiding and set the intention, okay? So, is anybody new today, Linda? Is anybody first time?
Let's see. I don't think so.
Good. Yeah, I want to just slow down here so that they understand the purpose of prostrations and how it's done. So anyways, just a good image to slow down on. Okay, so let's get into the typical 7-point meditation posture, keeping your back straight. If you're sitting on the chair, your feet are flat on the floor. If you're sitting down, it's cross-legged, lotus position. Your head is tilted slightly forward. Okay? And your jaw and mouth are relaxed. And your tongue is touching behind the front teeth, top of the top palate. And your eyes are slightly open, and if you're uncomfortable, you can close them. And the whole point of this meditation is, this is calm abiding. It's just to bring your mind to the present class. Everybody has a busy day, a lot of things going on. This is the way to focus that you're here and you're present here and bring your mind here. And it's also a great way to learn how concentration works. So we are going to focus, our object is going to be our breath. Again, what you can do is as you breathe in and out naturally, natural breathing, not labored breathing, not forced breathing, you can focus either on your stomach, when you inhale in the stomach going out and exhaling, stomach going back in, you can just focus there. Some people like to focus on right by the nostrils where they can actually feel the breath. Either way, the mind is focused on your breath. And if you're, after you start doing it, and if you find yourself just kind of wandering around in your mind and you catch a story, just remind yourself gently that you need to bring your mind back to the breath. And that's the point. So let's just do that for about a minute. At this point, we'll set the intention, or also called the motivation. And so let's just be delighted that we are still alive. And due to this gas tank of morality that we've spent so much energy and time and effort filling it last life, which is the main cause of even why our breath continues to go on in and out. Not because you're young or healthy. They are not the main reasons. They are secondary reasons. The main reason is the past morality. And the main cause of our having a life and a wish to practice a spiritual path is from an incredible practice that you've done in the past. Many aspirations, many wishes, a strong understanding of morality, of benefiting others. And this is why we are sitting here right now, thinking of karma, about life, about helping others. So how amazing. And how tragic it would be to waste this opportunity. So how to get the essence from it, as they would say, is to use it. To express our reliance upon Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the three jewels. And our wish to use this life to achieve enlightenment, which means so I can become a Buddha. So I can be of spontaneous benefit to others. To fully develop my true nature of empathy and love for others. To have the compassion that wants to benefit others, mixed with the wisdom that knows how. This is what a Buddha is, and this is our nature, our potential. So may the action of continuing to listen to Buddha's teaching, this Lamrim, cause exactly that. Thank you. All right, bring your attention to the class. Okay, so today is the 10th, I believe. 20 minutes, but it's 10th. And this is the 5th class. We have 2 more classes left after this, right? And we will finish all 3 scopes. And my hope and goal is that you walk away understanding how Buddha's teachings were organized. And these teachings are not coming from somebody, but it's coming straight from Buddha and obviously all our lineage teachers, right? So the authenticity of the teachings are there. Obviously, we paraphrase it and all those things, but the main teachings are accurate teachings. Okay. Won't take too long on these things. Maybe I'll slow down in number 3 and number 4 review, the class review, but you should at least be familiar that you come with an open mind and you remember the analogy of the 3 parts, the upside down part, the part with the hole and a part that's polluted already. You want to have open mind and be willing to listen and keep your mind open. If it's polluted already, then nothing is going to go in, right? So you're going to keep an open mind. Okay, and you understand this is a journey, this is a path. Obviously, we all have a mindset of going to a drive-in and getting something quick. But in terms of eons of lives and time, it's just a journey. Whenever you start, that's the beginning. And it's perfectly fine. It continues to go on. Okay, so, and we reviewed some required readings and need for a graduated path to enlightenment. And we did a lot of analogy that in our Western world, we have no problem organizing the normal school and colleges and certifications and all this kind of stuff. But when it comes to spiritual path, it seems like something out in the cloud there, something magical or something nobody seems to understand or organized. And how amazing that we have this 3 scopes of Lamrim so nicely made for us. And who did this? Or it started by, this is something you should always remember, it was started by Lama Atisha in 11th century in Tibet. He was an Indian pundit or a monk that was invited by the king over there. And he took all of these things and he organized in a book called Lamp for the Path. So that was the beginning of it. So remember that. Okay, and obviously, it was very important to understand that it comes from Buddha. So we went through very briefly Buddha's life story till he became enlightened, and he taught the 3 turning of the wheels, right? The 4 noble truths, the wisdom sutras on emptiness, and then the reconciliation of the 2 depending on the capacity of the people. And so he did that, and then he went on to teach. Of course, he taught for many, many years, 35, 40 more years, till he went to paranirvana. Obviously, Lama Tsongkhapa is the teacher of our Gelug tradition, and he, again, took all the teachings and created this beautiful, and I think I shared that book with you, the Treatise to the Path of Enlightenment. And I think that that is really, really deep study and very well organized as well. Then, of course, we talked about if you are trying to become Buddha, and I have to always say this, and I think I want to drive this. When we do these classes, there's a lot of words called suffering and dissatisfaction, and we have obstacles and obscurations, and it turns into almost like a negative thinking. I look at it very differently. I think it's very important to know that the goal is to be liberated, which is perfect happiness, and to become Buddha, right? Pure, perfect, omnipotent. So if that is the goal, you have to face the facts. What is causing the problem? It's like going to the doctor, and doctor does an x-ray and he does some blood tests and he tells you, this is what's wrong with you. And I'm going to give you some medicine and you need to come for therapy so many times a day. Well, nobody likes to hear that, right? So it's important, and that's the reason for when we talk about these things that these words are used. And this is what Buddha recognized. When he became Buddha, this is what he saw. This is why these people are being born and dying, and we go through all of these stages in life. And so that's why he wanted to talk about qualities of Buddha. If this is what we are looking for, we got to make our resume up, right? We need to start practicing those things. So then we went into the 3 Lamrim scopes, just a little more details on what each one covers. And then we started talking about the 3 contemplation, okay? So any questions so far in terms of how things were progressing? Okay, so just to cover it again, more than the topics here, I want you to see the 3 bullet points here. The lower scope, whenever we talk about death and impermanence, future rebirths, refuge, and laws of karma. Think about what's the underlying factor here. You're striving for happiness in future lives. You have to recognize death and impermanence. Impermanence, even a little more key, a little more focus there, that nothing is permanent. Future rebirths, so we don't want the suffering of the future rebirths, depending on the state of your mind when you die. And then, of course, you want to say, hey, I am ready, show me the way. And so then you take refuge. Refuge is your own commitment, done in a nice formal ceremony, but it's a beautiful ceremony. So we'll talk about that just briefly. And then, of course, laws of karma is absolutely important, right? So I'm using my mouse, so that's where it's. So remember those 3 points. Today, we will go into middle scope, striving for liberation from cyclic existence. So first scope, we focused on, I want to change my life. I want to strive for future life. Now I want to say, okay, I understand it. I want to take refuge, but how do I liberate myself? So we need to talk about those topics. And obviously, then the last thing we'll talk about is striving for enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And what does that mean? And what does that look like? So that's why this is how the scopes were. Okay. Okay. Again, death and impermanence. We went through a lot of details about the dissolution of the 4 elements and the subconscious level and all that. But the important thing, to at least for a quick overview, without going into a lot of details about Bardo and intermediate state and all that, just to know at least that point 1, death is definite. You should always know that it's going to come. So don't live in a denial. It's not going to happen to me. It will happen to me maybe 15 years from now. Oh, I'm too young. It can happen anytime. But that's something you keep in your mind. Time of the death is uncertain. And time of the death is extremely important. Why? Because you have an opportunity to do something and not have fear and be able to, what they call throwing karma. You create the seeds and practice in such a way that it not only helps you during the process, but you carry the seeds and what they call throwing karma that kind of propels you into the next life or form. Okay, so we train. we train. If you walk every day, if you play tennis every day, then you get good at it. And that's what comes to your mind. And I always, think about what will come to your mind when you are scared. You're going to grasp, crave, want to latch onto something, and a fear will set in. But when you know a little bit about how karma works, what is emptiness, what is bodhicitta, and what is renunciation, when you understand that, your level of fear is down, if not gone at that point, and maybe you are even able to guide depending on your situation, right? So, but at least that's the opportunity. And if the seeds are in your mind already, then it doesn't matter how you go. Hopefully they will ripen in a good way. Okay, just to understand that, this is all samsara. So depending on your state of mind, these are different realms. You can go into desire realm and demigod realm and human realm, or you can suffer in an animal realm or a formless ghost realm or a hell realm. Even if you don't believe this, if you don't know, according to Lamrim, these states of minds do exist. And think about it. Some people are tortured mentally. Even though they have a human birth, they are tortured. Look at the animal life, and we talked about that a little bit, and so forth. So be familiar. Your whole goal is striving for better future, right? So you don't want to go to the three lower realms. And hopefully, even in the desire realm, you may have all the prosperous life and luxuries of life and everything, but you may not be able to practice. So they say desirable to be or preferable to be in a human realm, though you go through the ups and downs and the pains and the birth and the death, at least you have the mind to be able to practice. So that's the whole purpose of that. So then you turn to refuge. You say, okay, I understand death and impermanence. I understand I don't want to suffer and I don't want to go to the lower realms. Please show me the way. So then you take refuge into Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Okay. And then we went into understanding the last piece, very important piece, was introduction to karma. So maybe we take a little bit of, just a little slow down on karma, just to give you a quick overview and so that you can remember some of these points. Karma means action, okay? The working of cause and effect. And if you remember, every cause has an effect. And as the cause happens, it's passing by. So it's always moving. It's not like sitting there for you, right? Everything you talk right now, it's over. I just said this word, it's gone. The effect is now. And it's going to continue. So whatever you do every single day, body, speech, and mind, creates karma. And then there's the other piece of karma that has not ripened, right? So it's from many, many lifetimes. Mind is a continuum. And you remember the three contemplation about mind. It is beginningless. It is your own, not somebody else's. And it has the potential to become a Buddha. That means it can be pure. Currently, you have Buddha nature, but it has little pollution in it, right? Because of karmic seeds and cycles and what we do and what we are attached to and so forth. As soon as you start working on those things and removing some of those bad seeds, I would call it, or three poisons, we'll cover that in a minute. And then so what happens, you start to purify. And then your mind gets purer and purer, and hopefully you create least amount of bad or non-virtuous actions and hopefully cleanse them out. So that's the goal. So positive actions produce happiness. Somebody needs to be admitted, I guess. Okay. And negative actions produce suffering. Okay. Sorry. Okay, then we continued a little bit more and we talked about the 10 non-virtuous actions of body, speech, and mind. Karma ripens in 4 ways, 4 conditions to bring a fully ripened result. Another main factor, we talked about tendencies and habits. Then change of our reality by purifying karma, the good news, that we can purify it. And then again, a little more about karma. And then and of course, we went through a purification practice. So let's just cover some of those real quick. Okay, again, remember this, the 3 of the body, the 4 of the speech, and the 3 of the mind. The opposite is antidotes, right? It's just not killing, which is wonderful. If you are already abstaining from killing somebody, you're doing wonderful. But maybe you're even helpful. If somebody is dying, you can be helpful. Not only not committing, but being kind. Obviously, if you look at all of these things very logically, would you like somebody, this happened to you, is another way of looking at it. Would you like this to happen to you? Somebody killed us or loved ones, somebody stole your stuff. You would like it. Somebody lying to you, speaking harshly to you. So you don't need a lot of logic in this. What do you mean by this? And how about this? And a little white lie and all this. You don't need to go further than that. But you can, of course, there's all kind of books and stuff that can tell you even a little more details. But at least in general, to understand that this is what they talk about, the 10 non-virtuous actions. Yeah. Then we talked about the karma ripens in 4 ways. A fully ripened result. It's a type of rebirth of our consciousness will take place when it leaves this precious body and at the time of the death, the next birth. Then what happens, actions similar to the cause. The words, the thoughts, and the actions we do in anyone's life are due to the habit of having done them before. Your tendencies, your habits, the seeds. So think about that for a second. You know, we wonder, nothing is random according to law of karma. It's a law, right? So that's what happens. The experience similar to the cause. You just think about things other people or beings do to us, or all the things that happen to us. The good and the bad, okay? This is not always about negative. It works both ways. If you've given somebody, you have a beautiful human life, you have good morality, good human life. If you're patient, they say you have a very nice looking features, you know. So things like that, there are a lot of antidotes, so good and bad. And environmental karma is related to how it's like the world around us. It's more like a community you live in, group you live in. If you go in your community and it's polluted water everywhere, beautiful lake, but you can't do anything, has got acid in it, or factory dumping stuff in it, right? You look at some places where pollution is so high, you can't even see the sky, okay? So, or go in a war zone, or go where people have famine right now, or pandemic. All this is environmental karma. Okay? Then it's important to know that 4 conditions to bring a fully ripened result. Again, nothing is so linear. Everything has degrees and is scaled certain way depending on your intention. The key piece here is the intention. If you go with the intention of doing harm, right, your motivation is to harm somebody, the object is there to be harmed, and then you take the action and the result. So that's the intention. So focus on the intention first, okay? That's where you need to make sure, what is your ultimate intention? If there is a good behind it, and there are many, many examples of, you know, I may have mentioned an example of a story somebody was discussing with Geshe-la. If there's a boat and there are 50 people and one guy is about to take a gun out and kill all these 49 people, and this other guy says, I'm going to do something and take care of this guy so I can save 49 people. The karma is still there, but maybe his intention was different, so the different consequences of that. So it all depends on how the intention of the strength of the intention. Okay, another factor we talked about was our habits. Think about it. If you were to sit down and watch TV or read a book or just look at your iPad, whatever you're doing, certain things attract you, right? It's just your mind goes there. No matter how good you're thinking, no matter what you're doing, certain good or bad, that's where your mind goes. We talked about some examples of even people who are completely attracted to fishing without even thinking. They automatically go and they think it's wonderful. Out in the nature, it's beautiful, but they're not thinking about what that fish is going through. For example, as an example, you know, I don't want to say anything negative about somebody's sports or anything like that. I'm just giving an example based on intention and based on how habits work and how tendencies are. So think in those terms. It's spontaneous. It's just there. But now, because you know, how mind works, how the seeds are deposited in your mind, and how these tendencies grow, and how if your mind continues and body goes away, then what goes with you? So if you think about a bank balance, we worry about a couple of bucks in our savings or mutual funds or whatever. Think about the karmic fund. Okay, think about the merits. So good things go with you. Wouldn't it be nice if you were to get a decent birth next time, a good state of mind, good looking body, and a place where you can continue your practice and still have all the comforts in life? So you can see how this works. So it is up to us, right? That's the whole point. So you can see the entire first scope is for striving for better future lives. That's how this is whole thing organized. Okay.
Hey,
Yes.
if you want to take a question, we do have one.
Sure.
Okay, so the question is, what is the relationship between negligence and intent?
Well, negligent is somewhat ignorance, but you don't know. Remember, we talked about somebody who just by mistake puts a hand on the ant. Is the intention of that person killing? No. So negligent could be just not knowing, but knowingly doing has a much more weight to it. So it's okay, negligent can happen, you don't know, you had no awareness of this, you had not studied this, you never looked at the Dharma stuff, and it just happened, okay? And of course, karma goes both ways. The recipient also has a karma, and you have a karma. But knowingly, intently hurting somebody, then there is a little more weight to that karmic activity, in my view. So yes, there are so many English words where you can take this and turn this way or that way, and you have to look at it from various angles. What is the intent? What are you doing? Are you consistently attracted to do that? And for example, killing a mosquito just like that, right? We do that. I mean, you're sitting outside, maybe some of you guys barbecue, and then what happens? Something comes and pow, right? Was that purposeful? No. However, you should be mindful. Would be nice that mosquito didn't want to die. Maybe you can say, come on, get lost. Do all of these numbers and walk away, or do something so they don't attract. So commit least, so that we at least create some positive mindset. That's all. But your intention was not, oh, there's a mosquito, bam, you know. So think about it in those ways. Okay. All right. So moving forward. So before we even talked about reality, change our reality by purifying karma, we had to understand that we need to understand what suffering is all about. We went through this very quickly, suffering of change, and a pervasive suffering. We'll cover that today a little bit more because it's second scope. Sorry. And then second noble truth, there are causes of suffering. And in very short form, the three poisons: ignorance of not knowing how we exist of ourselves, also how phenomena exists. Okay, and then so what happens is the attachment, the ignorance, that's ignorance, and then the attachment. Once you think I am me, independent I, then it's mine. And when mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets upset, so anger sets in, and so bam, bam, bam. That's a chain reaction. You can take an example. Somebody punches you, what's your first reaction? Punch right back, right? And why did it happen? We don't even know. Could be karmic. Maybe 22 lives ago, you punched that person. But you need to understand how things happen to us because of attachment and anger and through ignorance, not knowing how things exist. So that's the causes for the suffering. The number three is the cessation. You now know how you can work with your mind and you can bring it down, end it. And then of course we are right now going through the path. And those are the things you apply and you practice so that you can then become enlightened. Okay. And also karma can run out. right? You can see somebody's a millionaire one day, and then something happens in the stock market and gone. You look at how many houses burned down in California, mansions, beautiful homes, gone, right? Or somebody goes to get gas, buys a ticket and becomes a millionaire, lottery ticket, right? So you can see karma can run out. There's causes for everything. So it's very important to know that. And sometimes you can see good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. It again depends on your seeds. Some things ripen, you get a good life, but then your activity starts to go crazy. You do something crazy, you're attracted or you're attached to something, and your mind goes bananas. And then what happens? Some things start to ripen. So sometimes you can see a poor person has a great reputation, and then you could be a billionaire and nobody likes you, right? So all of those things. So it's not, and remember, your mind is yours. You can change it. So remember, the factory, the work is in your mind, and you have that workshop and you control that workshop. It's all in your own mind. It's not a hit or a miss, right? That's the point behind that. So then we decided that, okay, the good news here is you can remove these tendencies and, of course, karmas you do every day, you can manage with your mind. However, there are also a lot of karmic seeds that have not ripened. And by doing this practice and by understanding your mind, you can purify. That's the wonderful news. They suggested that there are a lot of purification practices. Two suggested and very, very well known are the 35 Confession Buddha prostrations and the Vajra Satwa. We did the Vajra Satwa practice, and I'll just go through that very quickly to just show you what we went through. So first thing you want to do is you want to regret what you're doing. And one wonderful thing about, particularly in Buddhism, is that they don't talk about guilt. Guilt has a connection with poor me, pity me. It's still attached to the I. Please look at me, I'm depressed, I'm down. They're saying, okay, you've done something. You don't want to do it. You recognize it wasn't good. Stop it and purify it, take it out of your mind, move forward. And it's a really powerful therapy. If you think about it, it's very powerful psychologically, very powerful. Okay? And so then we rely. And what do we rely on? We rely on the Buddha who taught us, who gave us all of these things, person who experienced it, and then his teachings and our three jewels, and we take refuge. So that's our reliance. Okay, so we have a support mechanism. We know what to do. We have the tools, right? And the remedy is you take action, you do something. So when we say do practice every day, do purification practice, do some mantras, put a certain kind of glasses on and see the world in a different way. All these practices are remedy and apply antidotes. So all of these things we've been talking about is slowly and steadily changing your mind to positive, to virtuous mind, to good things. Why? Because we now know we create our own reality because of kind of seeds we put in, what we want to see, and then that's what happens when you carry the seeds forward. So you don't want to be suffering in the lower realms, and you want to go with a positive mindset, or at least carry good seeds. So then you do it, and then you make a resolve, a strong determination not to do it again. Obviously, some of these things are primordial. It's been there for eons. It doesn't go away very quickly. Even the feeling of I and all that, easy to say here, but it is difficult to do. So what do? You practice, you meditate, you analyze, and slowly and steadily, you will see that the coating goes away, the truth comes out, and you can face it and say, yeah, I'm working on you. And you will see slowly changes happening in your life. And, even His Holiness says, somebody asked him, how do I know if this is really working? He says, well, look at you 3 years ago. Are you feeling this way? Has anything changed? Do you feel calmer? Do you feel you're a better human being? Are those nightmares still coming in? Okay, so some things are working, maybe other things need more work. So very practical. Okay, then you remember we did this beautiful visualization of Vajra Satwa. Again, Vajra Satwa, this is in the nature of tantric, because we put jewels and all that. You can always put the normal Buddha with the saffron, but it's for visualization, so you can concentrate and you develop your mind. It's all mental. You have to remember how powerful this is when you can concentrate and you regret and you look at reliance and you rely on this and you have a remedy and you're committing yourself and resolving that for 2 days, I will refrain from lying or killing something or insect or something, whatever it is. You know, when you make that commitment in your mind, you are changing your own mind. Okay, so it's a very powerful way of doing it. And just quickly, the words, I'm not going to go through the mantras, but just look at the English words. You know, people who go to the center, most of us memorize this because it is said in so many practices all the time. And it is a powerful practice and suggested by Lama Zopa Rinpoche that if you do it at night or in the evening, look at the day. Think of the positives you did, all the good things you did, and maybe we messed up here. And what you do is you do your 4 hours and you do a Vajrasattva practice. Just even to me, when I do like 21, it takes, when you know this by heart quickly, about 10 to 12 minutes, right? So it's how it goes. It's 100 syllables. So, you know, if you're serious, you should maybe slowly learn this mantra. But anyways, Vajrasattva, it's a being who has the wisdom of inseparable bliss and emptiness. Samaya, word, is a pledge that must not be transgressed. Lead me along the path. You're telling yourself, take me, let me go through this path, let me stay in it, right? Make me abide closer, Vajrasattva's Vajra Holy Mind. Please grant me a firm, stable realization of ultimate nature of phenomena. Look at the commitments you're making, you know, you getting it convince your conviction, right? Please grant me the blessing of being extremely pleased with me. So you have a really positive relationship in mind. Oops, sorry. Okay, and then of course, bless me with the nature of well-developed great bliss. Bless me with the nature of love that leads me to this state. And please grant me all the powerful attainments. Siddhi. Please grant all virtuous actions. Please grant your glorious qualities. Hum, the Vajra Holy Mind. Ha, 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 ho. The 5 transcendental wisdoms possessed by Buddhas is the wisdom of analytical wisdom, the wisdom of emptiness and understanding emptiness. There are 5 wisdoms. And so when you become Buddha, you have all these transcendental wisdoms. And hey, Bhagavan, one who has destroyed every obscuration and attained all this realization and passed beyond suffering. Those who, and then again it says, those who have realized emptiness, knowing things as they are, do not abandon me. So you're telling yourself, don't let this go, stay with me, right? The nature of indestructible inseparability and the great pledge of being the great being who has the Holy Vajra Mind, the Vajra Holy Speech, and of course the transcendental wisdom of great bliss. And Faye, clarifying the transcendental wisdom of inseparable bliss and emptiness and destroying the dualistic mind that obstructs it. Dualistic mind. We see things here. I am here, everything is out there. But remember, in the scheme of things, there's only oneness. Okay, so we'll talk about that a little bit when we talk about emptiness. Or I should say, dependent arising. We are all dependent on each other, more than oneness. It's a wrong way to say it. And this is how the whole mantra looks like, right? So that was a beautiful purification practice we did. Every single moment of our precious human life gives us the opportunity to purify eons of negative karma and to take great steps toward enlightenment by engaging in the profound practices of Mahayana path. Okay. So with that, I think I went through these definitions before, but just kind of quick look. What is samsara? Again, this reoccurring cycle of death and rebirth. Root of samsara is these two things, right? One is ignorance, not knowing how phenomena exist, and this I that we feel so strongly like it independently exists, I exist. But when we do some more analysis, you'll find out that you need to find and investigate if there is truly an I there. How do we exist? Who am I? So we go through that. And of course, that's the ignorance, which is the root of samsara, all our life samsaric cycle, because not knowing how things exist, that's the root. Once you have that ignorance in you, that means you will start to not see the reality, therefore you will latch and crave and grasp onto something. And that starts the whole delusional way of living, worrying, desire, craving even more, I can't live without it, all these things begin then. And then not getting what you want is a problem. So that's where all this stuff begins. So that's why I wanted to make sure and remember the three poisons: ignorance, attachment, and aversion. I thought I'll bring this in as a very simple little, definition piece. We talk about dharma all the time, so think about how it is etymologized, and that is that which holds or protects us from suffering and hence brings happiness and leads us towards liberation and enlightenment. Okay, that which is establishes the real meaning. Mantra, man means mind in Sanskrit, and it means mind protection. So think about it. When you say Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, and now you're focusing on the words, the syllables, and what it means, and maybe have a visualization. Now think your mind is in that state of mind. You're not thinking about something else. So it protects your mind. And that's why you see a lot of people automatically keep on doing their malas or say mantras all the time. Why? Because then your mind is not traveling different places. And meditation, we talk about meditation, and I think everybody kind of knows this, and the word is gom in Tibetan, and at least just as a reminder, means to familiarize your mind. Okay, hopefully on a virtuous object. Of course, you can also concentrate on a flame or a flower, but if you're going through this path, a virtuous object can be very beneficial. And always doing positive, leaving positive imprints in your mind is what we call collecting merits. Okay, so at least just a quick reminder. So today we're going to go through the Four Noble Truths real quick. There's not much on that. Of course, you can read books on it. I have an entire book on Four Noble Truths. There are 4 aspects to each of the truths, and it gets real deep. But in terms of general overview and the purposes of this class, we need to know the truth of the suffering, that suffering exists. And we know that, And you can also use the word dissatisfaction, okay? And we'll talk about it a little bit more. Causes of suffering, it has a cause. There are 6 root causes, but they're all branches of the 3 poisons, the other 3. Doubt and jealousy, but it really is all about ignorance, attachment, and aversion. And that we can end it, of course, and we've been talking about how it's your mind. We can end it. We can do purification practice. We can stop doing bad, non-virtuous actions, all the things we are learning from it, and you go through this path, and there is a path, and Buddha is leading it. So it's also important to know that when we talk about the first noble truth, there is suffering, just for knowledge's sake, suffering of suffering. This is also known as suffering of the pain. Your in-your-face suffering. Every day what you feel a little pain here, sicknesses, not feeling well, getting late to work. It can go on and on. Everything that is disruptive, that could be suffering of suffering. Suffering of change is something we don't think about. It is actually not even in a good vocabulary. It is what we call happiness. Okay, we think it's okay, nothing wrong, but what we do is we don't realize that those happinesses are temporary. So every day we do all these things to get to that little happy state, and then after a while that wanes, and then you're back to suffering. And if you latch onto something for that temporary happiness, then what happens, you want more of it. So then now you crave for it, now you grasp for it, and now you have, say, even more money, and you now worry about Where will I do it? What if I lose it? What if I play the wrong stock? Whatever the case may be. Okay, even think about changing jobs. Okay, exciting when you get promoted and all that, but then the reality hits, right? When you get there after a month, honeymoon period is over, and then the reality sets in. Changing homes, we have all these things. So there's excitement, happiness, is nothing wrong with it, but also recognize that those are temporary. A good example is people go to beach and because it's a beautiful feeling, you get a great sunlight, all that, but then you get sunburned. And then you got to jump back in the shade to heal yourself. So that you can think of those ways, also the suffering of suffering, and then all pervasive suffering. This is very subtle. This goes all the way to the seeds you already bring with your karmic seeds, the delusions and all of those things, they're there. And those tendencies are always there. So there's at a subtle level, but this is called all pervasive suffering. So when we talk about dissatisfactory life or dissatisfaction and suffering, they're talking about these three types of suffering. Okay. And also when you talk about the first noble truth, of course, is the three sufferings, the normal death cycle, the birth, the death, the old age and all that. But then we talk about second noble truth, we go into the three poisons basically. But more than that, Lama Yeshe calls me, it's a self-pity me factor. I am the innocent victim. Why does it happen to me only? We say these things like, why me? When something bad happens. Well, because we have attachment, we have anger built in, and of course we are ignorant. So this is why things happen, because we don't know how to see it. Okay, so our ego gets hold of that, and that's what causes the suffering. And obviously, we also have karma. It's from our past actions and habits. We continue to do it. If you have an angry mind, you're going to throw a tantrum at the smallest thing. Right? So those are the things that harms you. So let's go through that. Okay, I will. Okay, the two levels of practice, basically, there's nothing major topics here. All they're saying is, okay, if somebody punches you, somebody does something to you, bodily harm, keep your hands in your pocket. Don't react without thinking and get angry so quick. Now that you know that anger is not a good thing, manage yourself. Anger is when you lose your mind completely. Okay, I'm not talking about being firm or being assertive is not necessary. Anger is a mind state of mind that's poisoned. You don't think of any logic. You just want to just do some major harm. And so that is a delusional mind. This is not to say that you can't be firm. If a child was putting a finger in the fire and somebody says, stop it, that's not anger. A mother was worried. That's simple as that. So just kind of understand that where that's coming from. And obviously, second is work on your mind. So it's one thing to keep your hands in your pocket, but work in your mind also. What happens? So when you start to practice, you'll start to see that you can manage it. It's sometimes very difficult. It's so ingrained. And so it happens, but I always, if I feel sometimes temperament come up, even in an email tone, even if I'm typing an email, I'll get up and walk away. Take a 2-minute break. I'll even do a mantra or something. And even then it's still running in the subconscious, like, oh no, man, I'll calm down and I change my email. And a lot of times things go fine. Fine, because some people are just going to do that. But you got to work your mind. So don't let that bother you too much. So that's what they're talking about. Our senses. So you be your own therapist, right? There's no topic here. I'm just saying you are the boss. You are managing your mind. You know how mind works. You know what non-virtuous actions are. You know what the three poisons are. So now you become your therapist. You don't go self-pitying, sit in a corner, get depressed, and start taking some things and then go to sleep. That's not the way you want to function your mind. So you can be your own therapist. The senses are like dumb animals. We think that the eyes can see, but the eyes only sees shape and size maybe. This eardrums only gets the waves, right, of the sound. But look at the story when you listen to a music that you really like, a soul music or a rap music or a rock and roll or whatever your favorite music is. Look at the sugar coating we do because you like it. Mind likes it. You have some experiences, you put some more sugar coating, some cream on it, and it was a great, I love it, you know, and now it's powerful. But ear just does its job, just hearing it. It goes in the brain interprets some of these things, and mind puts a nice sugar coating on it, and now it's wonderful. Somebody's wonderful music, somebody's dancing, somebody's saying, oh my God, can you shut this off? You see that all the time, right? So think about that. These senses are that way. Where is the work happening? In the workshop, in the mind. Okay? And according to Buddha, we all have some level of neurosis. If we are in samsara, we are all neurotic. We have some degree of insanity in all of us. That's why we are in samsara. It's just a level of, the degrees are different, right? Some have more, some have less, right? And remember, ignorance and ego grasping is the root delusion. Okay, and we'll go through this a little more. And okay, so that is how the Four Noble Truths work. And then, of course, we talked about purification, we talked about ceasing the ending of those suffering, and we also talked about going through the path like Lamrim, Buddha's teachings. That's your path. And Buddha shows the way. Four Noble Truths. This is a big one. So let me see, it is 5 to 8. I need maybe 10, 15 minutes to cover this, then we'll do a meditation. Okay, so we can get out on time. Okay, so these are called, interdependent origination. And what is this? So I'm going to take a look at my note just so I make sure I give you a proper introduction to it. So it's in your practice, you have to realize the true nature of samsara, which already kind of know how samsara is, the cycle of life and death. And then you have to prepare yourself. And you need to meditate on it and see what you're going to do, how you're going to get your mind in order, what positive seeds you're going to put in. And then you wonder what makes us come back again and again and again in this samsara. And obviously, there's a couple of ways you'll find sometimes that this particular linear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, sometimes there's little different, slightly different. One is more on a scriptural way, where it gives you a general way the samsara works. This is more experiential way. This is putting you in the middle, how we take birth and death again and again. This is what keeps us going. So I'll take a note of this. So it starts with ignorance. Look at this, the root delusion. So the very source of all troubles is the wrong perception or wrong ideation. We are always holding some sort of an I, some sort of an egocentric thought or attitude, right? Everything we do is based on this wrong conception of the nature of the self. And this is the basis on which the rest of the worldly thoughts that creates the samsara. This ignorance creates an attachment to I. Ignorance is not just a lack of understanding of how everything else exists, but this not seeing that which exists. And we'll go through that when we go through emptiness. So this is the root cause. We don't see how reality is. And we think that I am individual, inherently, this is me, this is Hemant, I'm here. It's all me, right? And then that's where, then when Hemant doesn't get, I call it the chocolate cake, carrot cake. So when you're expecting a chocolate cake and then somebody gives you a carrot cake, I doesn't like it, right? And so we get upset. And so that's what starts with the root delusion, ignorance. The second one is called compositional or karmic volition formations. And the distorted actions of body, speech, and mind that arise from this ignorance, the attachment, the aversion, stain the mind, which are called these formations. The moment after we create this distorted karma and action itself, it happens and it passes away, but it leaves a little imprint, right? So then we go to the mind, the consciousness. That's the next link. Each time the compositional action is created, the potential for that action to produce future rebirth is infused in its consciousness, habits, tendencies. again and again, doing the same thing again and again and again, and liking it and wanting more of it. And so now it's infused. So then what happens? You develop craving. Now you like it. I like it. So what happens? You crave. You want more of it. And then grasping is nothing but an exaggerated craving. Now you can't live without it, right? And then what happens after that? So that's called grasping. And then becoming or existence is the most powerful one. The sixth link, becoming, at the end of our life, a throwing karma. We talked about throwing karma. The last mind or karmic seed that you have is going to propel you to the next life. Okay, it arises, this throwing karma arises and immediately directs us towards our future existence. This spatial mental action that appears at the final stage of life is called becoming. So the first six we talked about is during your life, when you go through from birth on to death. During your life, this is what happens. You have ignorance, you have all this mental activity. Now the seeds are set in your consciousness. Then you start to crave for some of those things, attachments or hatred towards something. And then you exaggerate that and grasp. And then that seed is situated now firmly in your mind. And then what happens? We take rebirth. Okay, so now the seventh link is the rebirth. So now at birth, now what happens? Think about this. The moment the wind leaves the bardo body, which is the previous life, and enters the united cells of your parents, the link of rebirth is established. The three things involved must have karmic connections with one another to establish this kind of father-mother-child relationship. And all these circumstances are complete, rebirth takes place. So all the conditions have to be right. The mother's womb, disease state, the easy birth, all these things come together. Now you're born, right? So your mind was already attracted. There was a karmic connection. The seeds were there. The mind forms, comes to the egg and sits on the egg and the sperm, and there's a birth. And then what happens? They call the next link name and form. And what they're saying here is from the time the link of rebirth is established until the sensory organs of the child are developed is the eighth link, which is called the name and form. So the material substances that constitute sperm and the ovum of the parents are called form. And the consciousness that dwells within that material basis is called the name. Don't know why they call it, but that's what they call it. Then what happens the next time? The six sense organs develop, right? You know, the six senses are coming up. After the sense organs of the child have developed into a mature functional state, the ninth link, that is the six senses, arises. This is like the construction of a building, right? In which finished work such as windows and doors have been completed. Now you have the body and form. Then comes the contact. So things are pleasurable, things are unpleasant or neutral, right? So the feeling develops. I like this. I don't like this. So that's the next one. So that develops. And then what happens? You go through this. Now you've developed the seeds. All these things are set in your mind, what you like, what you don't like, and all that. And then the aging process goes through all the changes it goes through. And last link is the final aging and death. And then you go into the cycle again, and it starts again. So what they're saying is if you meditate on this 12 interdependent origination or links, they call it, it gives you an idea how the root delusion of ignorance starts the cycle. And therefore, so important to understand the root, what is the root delusion and how to get rid of it. And we've been talking here and there about you are the boss. It's your mind. Put the positive karma. Understand the reality. We'll talk about the reality a little bit if I have a time today, if not the next class. And this is very, I thought, yeah, we have a little more time. Yes, good. This is very nice. I think that this was interesting for me. If you've been to Kadampa Center, you see this picture just about in a lot of Ganpas at the entrance. So let's take a look at this. This will tell you what you've learned so far. Okay. So this is the wheel of life. This is the cyclic existence. Okay. So let's take a look at that. The center circle depicts the three poisons. Okay, and what are they? Attachment, ignorance, attachment, and aversion. Okay, and of course, I don't want to go into detail of, one is a rooster and a snake and a bird and all this kind of stuff and take, they each represent something, but the three poisons are there. Then look at the next one. Okay, you can see the second image represents karma. You can see positive karma and negative karmic activities, the dark ones, basically descending towards the lower realms, and the white side, you see on the left side, is ascending towards the desire realms. Then when you go to the next level, those are the realms, the 6 realms they've shown. The top 3 desire realms, and the bottom 3 are the lower realms. Okay, so this is how it's depicted. And then look at the outer pictures, that are 12 of them. These are the 12 independent origination links that we just went through. So based on your 3 poisons, based on your karmic activities, you will have this in this samsara, go through upper realms and lower realms, depending on your mental state. And then the cycles is with the 12 links, you keep on circling within this cyclic existence. And the monstrous face with the claws, that's what they call Lord Yama, or the Lord of the Death, or the one who controls this cycle. And then if you look at the moon and the Buddha on the top, moon stands for liberation. It represents liberation, and Buddha is pointing to the moon. That means he's showing you the path out of this cycle. You are in the clutches of this Lord Yama, right? And you keep on doing this again and again and again and again, and going through this cycle, and you can liberate out of this, and Buddha is showing the way. So I thought it was not necessary, but very important when you see this, when you go to a lot of these monasteries and stuff like that. And when you see that, now you know. And maybe if you can even look on the internet, the Wheel of Life. And also Lama Yeshe, Birds in Archive, so many places. And it goes into really nice what each picture stands for, what does the rooster mean, what does the pig mean, and what does this picture mean. It's very interesting.
Hemant, there was a question or a request actually to revisit the second link and kind of explain that a little bit.
Sure.
Again.
Okay, I will. Sure. So it's called compositional actions, or karmic, or volitional formations. The big words. Don't worry about it. I'll explain you. Okay, the distorted actions of body, speech, and mind. So first one is ignorance, right? We have attachment, hatred, and ignorance. We don't know how things are. So we latch onto the self as I, or we think things exist the way we see it, and solid and inherently and all that. And this creates attachment, and this creates craving and grasping and so forth. But anyways, compositional actions are the distorted actions of body, speech, and mind that arise from ignorance, such as the attachment, the aversion, the stain that stain the mind with what we call volitional formation. So all the thoughts you get right now, how many thoughts are going through your head? And you think about that, like what, 51 mental factors? You look at one thing, I like it, I don't like it, this would look good here, I hate it, it's too costly, it is this color, that color, somebody can use it, bam, 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 and within seconds you can go through all the formations in your mind. So all those activities that go on related to attachment, related to ignorance, they are all called compositional actions. And that's why our mind is always chattering, busy. And more you do it, more it's busy. And then you wonder why we don't have bliss. And why don't we have calm? And that's why we practice. So that's what it says. Then the moment after we create this distorted karma, the action itself has passed and gone, but it leaves on the stream of consciousness an imprint that remains there until it manifests in future as a favorable or unfavorable experience. So those are all those activities related to those root poisons, mental activities. Those are called compositional actions in the mind. Okay. There's a great writing. I took a lot of this not only from FBMT, but Lama Yeshe Archive has a great article on it. And I may have even, I don't know if you can see it backwards, probably. This entire thing is in detail explained in this also. And you can take a look at that. There are other books, much is written on this stuff. But at least this gives you an idea of how things are linked with our mind and actions we do, and not knowing what the root delusions are. And it keeps us bringing back and again, because we carry those seeds all the time. And you can get out of it. You can liberate yourself. That's the point. So this was, I hope that this was helpful in terms of this image and a little understanding. So if you understood your first scope, you should understand the 3 poisons, the karma, the realms, the 12 links. You can see some of these things already as your first and second scope. And the pictures, the 12 links will tell you the death and the birth, the impermanence, all of those things are in there. So you can see the images and try to see if you can understand them. I have the meanings with me, but I think that this was important to just connect with the 12 dependent origination link, and the topic, the second scope that we are covering is the 4 noble truths, the types of suffering, the 12 dependent origination link, and then I wanted to show this picture. Okay. So here comes the big subject. There's a whole class on this, 7 classes. It's the 12th module. So the idea is not to deep dive. I will tell you right up in the front that you will have many questions in your mind will arise if you're just going through introduction, but I will try to simplify it. And I'm only going to speak for maybe 3 to 5 minutes on this right now. Then we'll cover it next week in a little more detail. But at least I want you to understand what, when we talk about emptiness, there's so many words out there, Sunyata and emptiness and ultimate reality, and what are they talking about? You know, what is it empty of, right? So these questions come up, but this is not, this requires contemplation, this requires meditation, and it takes a while before things start to gel with you. It takes a little while, but at least we can give you some introduction. So first, again, the definitions. So ignorance, literally not seeing that which exists or the way in which things exist. There are basically 2 kinds, ignorance of karma and ignorance of ultimate truth. So here's another word, ultimate truth, same thing as emptiness. Okay. Ignorance is the fundamental delusion from which all others spring. So see the value, such an emphasis given on this. So there are 3 aspects of the path. If you were to take an entire long run and saying, what are the major pieces? Renunciation. And we went through this 12 links. I did not define renunciation, but it is nothing more than a yearning to get to really hop on the train and says, you know what, I am tired of this life, this kind of suffering or dissatisfaction, not this life, but maybe one way of thinking. I truly want to liberate myself. When you get that conviction, and it is no longer hard work on your mind, it is no labor involved, it's spontaneous. You feel like, you know what, I get it. I'm going to work on this. Then you go into, then you can renunciate in your mind. This is not about leaving your home, leaving your hobbies, or not working and things like that. That's not the renunciation they're talking about. It's the renunciation in your mind, a conviction that you want to get out of this samsara. You want your mind to be happy. Okay, so that's renunciation. The next thing we talk about is the emptiness or shunyata, how things exist. Okay, and for today, I'm just going to say very quickly, just remember that we have this sense that I exist inherently. There is this solid me, I in it. Also, we think everything that we see out there has some sort of enduring existence, inherent existence. We see the tree, we see the tables and the books. Okay, so what they say is there are 2 things going on, conventional truth and ultimate truth. conventionally, things do exist. I mean, you and I have a agreement. We're gonna call this a mouse. I'm gonna call this a pen. No denial, right? You know it's a pen. I know it's a pen. Pen exists. However, conventional truth is deceptive. We think this pen exists like a solid pen, and we look at this plastic and rubber and a little bit of ink in it. There is no penness in this pen. It is simply conventionally labeled object that does the writing, but we agree that we call it a pen so we can speak. It is an ideation from your mind that we call this a pen. If I were to bring somebody from some small island who's never seen a writing instrument and tell him to give me a pen, he will look at me like, what? Why? Because the concept of the pen does not exist in that person's mind. So we can see that everything we see is like that. Now, take it a little further. Also remember, everything is dependent arising. It does not exist on its own. And we'll talk about this next class in a little more detail. What does that mean? Take anything. You take yourself, a tree, a plant, an animal, table, chair, cup. It comes from something else. It comes from somewhere else. You can go back and back and back. And is it the cup? Is it the sand? Is it the molecule? Is it the atom? Is it the nanoparticle? I mean, you can go on and on and on and on. Then what is the cup? Well, cup is conventionally, it exists. If I say, Linda, give me a cup, she knows, here's the cup, right? So this will twist your mind a little bit, but know that you need to understand. For example, I'll give you one example that will clarify something. Rainbow is a good example in my mind, or fire. Rainbow exists. You see a rainbow in the sky, you say that's a rainbow. Now take the constituents of the rainbow away. The light and the moisture. The rainbow does not exist there. It's no longer there. It was dependent on those constituents, correct or not? Does that mean rainbow doesn't exist? Conventionally, yes. Anytime it appears, we call it a rainbow, but it is dependent arising. Okay, now take a look at fire. It needs friction, it needs heat, it needs light, it needs all these things to say, and we call that activity, that phenomena, fire. So we as people conventionally have created these words and labels, but when you look at something carefully, it's perfectly fine to call glass a glass, to have a conversation, so we can actively work or do something. But however, there's a different mind that looks deeper and sees everything in a different way. So now all of a sudden, when you know that's how all phenomena is, then what happens is you don't get this neurosis about me and I and you, and we are all connected, interdependent. Those things will start to pop in. And what we'll do is next time, we'll take it much simpler and take you step at a time so you understand the concept a little bit about emptiness without going too deep into it, with some examples. Fair? So with that, today's goal was the second scope, to finish the second scope which we have. We've talked about the Four Noble Truths. We talked about the types of suffering. We talked about the 12 dependent origination links, and that tells you that now that the goal, if you remember the 3 bullet points, the first scope was striving for happy future rebirths. Second one was looking for liberation, renunciation. So with that, we'll start our meditation on renunciation. So just get yourself in a position, and we'll end with a dedication at the end. I'll just leave it here and take a look at it if you want to read it, but I was going to use it next time also. Okay. This meditation on renunciation is based on all meditations of the lower scope, which includes perfect human rebirth, death and impermanence, suffering of the lower realms, karma, refuge. And the middle scope, the suffering of the cyclic existence of all 6 realms, as well as the general samsaric sufferings, the causes of the suffering, the mental afflictions, the Four Noble Truths, the 12 links of dependent origination. The fully renounced mind is the mind that rejects or gives up not only suffering itself, but more importantly, the causes of that dissatisfactory life of suffering, non-virtuous actions of karma, and the mental afflictions. To achieve fully renounced mind, we must understand cyclic existence thoroughly. We must understand in what way all levels of cyclic existence are in the nature of suffering. We must understand what is suffering and what are the causes. We looked at the 6 realms of cyclic existence one by one. We contemplated on the sufferings of each realm, of the lower realms, of the higher realms, and how we go in and out of these samsaric cycles of different realms. So fix your mind on this conviction as long as you can with a concentrated mind that you want to be liberated. That you don't want to go into the lower realms. Now contemplate the different types of suffering, especially the 3 sufferings, the suffering of suffering, the everyday suffering, right? Just the little things here and there in your face type thing. The changeable suffering, when things change. Or even little temporary happinesses that turn into dissatisfaction later on. And then pervasive suffering, those delusions that are in there, the tendencies, the habits, the seeds, the karmic seeds. Come to a final and firm conclusion that all experience, all existence that is under the sway of this karma and the delusion is in the nature of suffering. And then fix your mind on this conviction with a concentrated mind. Now contemplate the different mental afflictions one by one, especially the 6 big ones, starting with the 3 poisons: attachment, aversion, ignorance. And the branches of those 3 are the pride, jealousy, and doubt. These are the root causes of our creating continuous negative karma, and thus the cause of beginningless suffering. These mental afflictions have caused us again and again to take rebirths in lower realms. And if we do not renounce them, reject them altogether, they will cause us to take similar rebirths again and again in the future. And now, since you understand that to be liberated from this means that you must renounce these causes completely and forever, coming to a strong conclusion that you never want to be under the control of these delusions and resultant karma again. Now, fix your mind on this conviction as long as you can for about a minute or 2. Now, having genuinely generated this thought within you, stop all thinking processes and simply remain concentrated on this determination with single-pointed focus, allowing it to absorb into your deeper levels of mind. So we'll dedicate this now. Having made this effort to achieve a fully renounced mind, may I, in every moment, renounce and overcome the causes of suffering, that is, every mental affliction to my mind. May I swiftly be liberated from samsara and progress to the state of supreme awakening in order to lead all other sentient beings to that supreme state. Thank you. I'm going to add homework assignment, but everybody's been reading their material, The Method, the Wisdom, and the Three Paths by Geshe Gandrup Sopa. I hope you do. I am telling you, I am hooked on that. If somebody were to even ask me, potentially, can you give me an overview of Buddhism? When I read that, it's not simply just the Four Noble Truths and who was Buddha. It tells you. It goes through a really beautifully way of explaining what we've been going through. And then if you read the next piece, an outline of the path to enlightenment by Nick Rybush, everything that we've talked about, he puts that in a small paragraph of each of those things. Just one after another, goes through the entire library. So very nicely done. And so I would say that if you can't read everything and you don't have the books, at least if you could read, this is available through the site, Kadampa Center site, that I would suggest to you read the 3 readings. They're not a lot. I've already read them 3-4 times because every time I read it, I find something that I'm more interested in. But I really find The Method, the Wisdom, and the Three Paths by Geshe Gandrup Sopa very interesting. And he talks about the renunciation, the bodhicitta, and the emptiness. And the outline of the path to enlightenment by Nick Rybush, just nicely said. It's like it doesn't go into any detail, but just puts it right there, you know? So it will help you understand the path, all right? So with that, I am done. I really want to thank you for paying attention. You are done with the second scope. So we finished the first scope, the 3 contemplation, the first scope and second scope. So we're going to talk a little bit about emptiness and start getting into the last scope in the next 2 classes. And that will bring the Lam-Rim path in its most overview way to end. All right, I'll hang around. Otherwise, thank you so much for attending the class. I hope you get something out of it.
Very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raymond.
Very interesting.
It was very nice. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Payment.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye now.
See you next week.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.